Call to order the Town of Ulysses Board of Zoning Appeals meeting for 15 May 2025. Members in attendance are Karen Metter, Cheryl Thompson, Andy Hillman, Kim Moore, and me, Steve Morelli. Also in attendance is Niels Tiggerson, who will also be out, and Carissa, who's going to be documenting our proceedings today. Thank you. That's great. Good to have you. Any board members? No. Sorry, no board members.
I'm Mary Bouchard online.
Oh, good. Mary Bouchard online, and looks like thanks for attending, Mary. Good to see you. Before we continue, can I hear a motion to appoint Kim Moore as our voting BZA member tonight? So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Just for a point of order, what are we missing? Why we have to do this every?
Well, that's why I wanted to have the town and the board members weigh in on that one. It's a great question. Did you hear that, Mary?
No, I didn't hear what she said.
It was saying, basically what we've been doing, Kim's an alternate, was an alternate, and what do we need to do to get her to be a permanent voting member or a member of the board? We've been voting her in every time for the past several meetings.
Okay, well, was Rich at the other meetings? Well, he hasn't brought it up to the board, but I can bring it up at our next meeting, which is in a couple weeks.
Okay, right, great.
So
Yeah,
who is that wants to be a regular member?
Kim Moore, yeah, was an alternate, and now we have a vacant spot, and we'd like to move her up to be a regular member.
Did you say Jim Moore?
Kim, K with a K.
Oh, Kate Moore.
Kim.
Kim. Okay, sorry. Kimball Moore is an alternate. Okay.
Nope, not as an alternate.
She's already an alternate. We want to move her up to being a full member.
Right.
Good. Okay, great.
I'll bring it up at the next meeting. And
Good,
let you
thanks.
know.
Rich has been away. He was away for a month or more, I think, so we haven't been able to get to this.
Okay.
Thanks, Kim.
Yeah, just will save us some time.
Well,
Yeah.
we need to do it anyway. And ask next time too, if we're doing the same thing. Okay, also, does anyone have anything they'd like to contribute to tonight's agenda? No, Cold Springs Road. Yeah, okay, great. Anything?
No.
Cheryl?
No.
Okay. Tonight, we're gonna have a discussion on one topic and one topic only, so we're not gonna talk about any other topics, anything that's not pertinent to this one issue. I just want to say that up front, because last time people were sitting and waiting to give voice to another Cold Springs Road. So I don't want you all to be sitting here all night and then having me announce that later. Okay? All right, great. Thanks for coming. Thanks for attending, everybody. The first item on the agenda is review the meeting minutes. If you had a chance to look at them, I'd like to invite any edits or corrections. Did you do those, Niels?
No, that was mine.
Oh, well, you did?
Yep.
Oh, okay, great.
I think we discussed this last night, right? I didn't have time to look at
Yes,
things today. so
yeah, they came in 7 o'clock.
Worried about that. Can we put off the minutes? So we can understand.
Sure.
I mean, I don't know if anyone else is in that boat, but.
I'm all for that.
Okay.
Put them up till next time.
Yeah.
So we're gonna just put these minutes off till the next meeting. That's all right? All right, everybody? Good, all right, great. Cold Springs was there some discussion and people were sitting here last time for the whole meeting and we said, oh, we're not talking about that.
And we're not talking about that this time.
We are not.
And that's okay.
Okay, so the first item of new business is really a continuation of the discussion of an appeal by the applicant and owner Chad Doolittle to construct a new attached dwelling unit on a vacant lot. Has this changed at all, Niels? I'm reading all the stuff from the previous. Day.
Nothing's changed. The only thing that we did get from Chad last night was an updated site plan and
Yeah.
response narrative.
I got that, but I just wondered if the whole proposal has changed at all. Not really. I didn't see any changes.
Well, from the discussion last night, if I heard, or last month, if I heard everything correct from Chad, it's like only talking about the driveway portion. So that's my presumption is that's.
So to construct a new detached dwelling unit is not really what we're talking about tonight. Is that correct? I'm
That-
getting very confused a little. I'm getting pretty confused here because there's a house sitting there that's been done.
Yeah.
It's not conforming at the moment unless that actually has been changed. We'll talk about that in a minute.
Yeah.
But we're looking at just the wetland. True? Encroachment on wetlands
Or the driveway.
or the driveway, not even for where that building is sitting.
That's it's a secondary discussion for the board to deliberate on, I would suggest tonight.
Okay, there's a wetland there. It's been designated, it was federally designated as a wetland, and Tompkins County has designated it as an intermittent stream. Is that true? Not really. That unfolded a little bit more. Need to ask you, when we get into that, I'll ask you that when we get into it,
Okay.
right? So it's either, it's a stream nevertheless,
Yep.
and it's attached to the wetland. And there have been some designations that have that whole wooded area as a wooded wetland, but I'm not sure. I would like to talk about that too.
Sure.
Okay, so we're looking at the 50-foot buffers that are required, and right now, we're sure the road encroaches on the 50-foot buffer. That's the driveway. All right. So I think I want to turn the floor over to Niels. I think I would like a full explanation of the way you see the details and the details of the request and what it is we're doing here.
Okay.
What you'd like us to do.
So application came in to the building department to construct a new dwelling unit on the site. Address of 5280. It was subdivided back in 2019. Well, an application was submitted in 2018. Went through the BZA. BZA granted a variance for lot dimensions for the planning board to be able to approve the subdivision. The planning board subsequently approved the subdivision in 2020. It was recorded at the county in due time, so the subdivision is a done deal. 2025 is when Chad Doolittle submitted for an application to construct the dwelling unit, at which time staff found that it's questionable whether or not the house is in a wetland. That's one of the questions of, I think, to the BZA to determine tonight, because the code is not exactly clear. And then the driveway was constructed, and thanks to Chad's presentation at the last meeting, it was 2021, 22, I think, when that was constructed without permits. So there's been some questions on that. Some people came into our office. People don't seem to be aware and reasonable that grading permits under New York State Building Code law do require a permit. And under that definition of grading, it's any excavation of any sort of topography and or any fill by artificial means, meaning it's not an act of force majeure. So it's not a landslide. It's anything done by humans. So any grading, fill, or combination, or I should say any excavation, fill, or combination is considered a grading under New York State Building Code law, and that does require a permit. So it appears that the previous property owner, I believe it was David Cooperman, hired a contractor to construct did not receive permits. The sticky point is prior to building permit issuances or construction permit issuances like the dwelling unit, if there's any variances that are needed, the building official cannot issue those building permits or construction permits without the BZA approval. So that's where the sticky point is. And so there was discussion in last night's meeting, or keep saying last night,
Yeah,
last month, that there wasn't any indication that a permit was required. What was at hand back in 2018 and 2019 was just subdivision. There wasn't any submitted plans for construction. It was just a subdivision at the time.
Right.
There's also been further questions about what code was in effect. And that's another mesh. And we did ask town legal to join, but it doesn't look like he's on board. The application was submitted in 2018 for the subdivision and the related variances. At the time, the zoning code that was under effect was initially adopted in 2005. So it was the 2005 zoning code.
Mhm.
At the time, there was a requirement for, similar to today, a 50-foot setback from streams and wetlands. Wetlands at the time were only defined by federal and state. By the time the feds had already designated a federal wetland there. So
Right.
that was on the, at least the peripheral review of definitely the county planning department and the BZA and the planning board, that wetland on a federal level existed. The town board adopted its official wetland map on July 2019, which incorporated local wetlands.
Mhm.
And then the town repealed and adopted an entirely new code on zoning code, I should say, on December 10th, 2019, which then incorporated provisions for local wetlands. The BZA issued its decision a week later on December 18th. So one of the clarifications we got from town legal was that application did not vest under 2005 zoning code. It was effective of the 2019 zoning code. So the code that we're dealing with now was applicable with the BZA's decision back in 2018, just as a clarification point.
So can I back up on that? So the federal wetland was 50 or 100 back then?
50.
Okay, then it went to 100.
Yep.
Okay.
And then as of 2019, we also have a local wetland that's on site, and they have different, if you look at the maps, they don't have the same contours.
Right.
That's because they're looking at a very high level. The only way to really know where wetland boundary is to have a professional go on site and do an assessment.
And it's got to be a certified professional and
Our zoning code is nebulous on that. Currently,
professional what?
yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And what was the BZA decision that you're referring to in 2019?
It was for lot dimensions, lot width, depth,
Lot?
yes. And the panhandle lot or the flag
Flagpole.
portion.
The variance to go from 50 to 38 feet flagpole,
Mhm.
so county.
And that was it, right? It wasn't, had nothing to do with roads or construction or anything like that.
No.
So that was the BZA saw that. Oversaw that.
So Neil's, two questions, actually, the May 9th letter from county planning saying that they didn't see any issues with, the driveway, and the May 7th, one from Angel saying that he wasn't sure if the string was interrupted or, what was that?
Femoral,
Yeah, that's it, thank you. So those are new since the last meeting too.
correct.
So we have that, okay. And then one question. I was the one last meeting that was really pushing to just focus on the driveway. But are we going to be, would we be doing a disservice to Chad if we don't look at the wetland around the house at this time, or do we, is it still better just to focus on the one piece? Or will it actually drag the process out if he has to come back and then do a second?
If it's easier to not go down rabbit holes, maybe stick to the driveway for now, and then once all your questions have been vetted, maybe then discuss the house. If that makes sense as a course of attack.
I do have information on both that I'll share.
Okay, good. I'll ask you in a minute. I'm gonna,
Not pursuing a variance for that. No.
okay, good. I have some things to ask you about that. Thanks.
Thank you.
I'm not sure. I think I said something to Kim last time about this, or we talked about it after, and it's it's really hard just to look at one little thing and not focus on the rest, because it's our purview, really. We look at how it affects a town, why, you know, the whole town, how it affects the environment, you know, other than the town even. So we certainly will look at the property, the rest of the property. And then I think when we're making considerations of, it, we say, well, maybe we allow this, sometimes we suggest another, like something balancing. And I don't want to use the word mitigation, but some mitigation procedure. If you're gonna harden the surface, then can you soften the landscape a little bit somewhere else? So we do that a lot. So we don't always just look at one little thing. And so I'm kind of resistant to that. And what do you think? Ian?
Right, I think that we have to have a little more holistic view of the what's going on there. Because there is and I think that we're avoiding the word mitigation because sometimes it's used as a technical
Yeah,
term
yeah,
to
yeah.
replace a wetland.
Totally.
And but the other definition of mitigation is appropriate.
So I asked you pointedly because we have actually looked at this before and said, oh, well, it's not acceptable unless you do this and pertaining wetlands and stuff too, especially. So I'm not sure that we can't look at the entire property. So if you have this road and we're looking at that, and then the building is actually also encroaching on the wetland. I just feel like we're missing a chunk of information, aren't we? Don't we need a wetland delineation here?
So that's one of the decisions the board, I think, needs to deliberate.
Okay,
So-
but and let me clarify that, and your point was a good one. We could decide that the previous wetland delineation was good, but I'm not seeing a previous wetland delineation anywhere, and I don't have coordinates, and we don't have a map. We have what do we have? How do we know how far anything is from the wetland? We don't know where the wetland is. I mean, I can look at high resolution, spatial resolution imagery, and I could do that, but I would feel, but I can't see if there's hydrophytic plants. I don't know if they're the soil type. I don't know the three major characteristics of their standing water year round or not. I can't see that from aerial photographs.
Okay, so backtracking, so it appears that in 2019, May of 2019, Ron McCain did a wetland delineation.
Okay,
We don't have, we weren't able to find a copy of that report either.
so we don't have any spatial reference on that at all, right?
Well, generally, so for those that aren't familiar with wetland delineations, it's a two-step process. There's when a professional goes out on site, the first thing they do is look at it and first determine if there is a wetland or not, just spatially. And then if they figure there is a wetland, then they use the Army Corps standards. US Army Corps standards has a very rigorous reporting system. You look at hydrology, presence of hydrology, type of soils and plant material. And then from there, they determine what category of wetland it is, and then they go through and map it. And that mapping eventually works with a surveyor to delineate, draw a line on a map. So that's generally what administrators, wonky people call delineation. Although delineation has another definition of just being anything drawn on a map is delineated, right? Our code doesn't define what delineation means. So that's open for interpretation. But we know in 2019, there was some sort of report delineation that was done. We weren't able to find a copy of that. We looked at the Tompkins County Laserfish. We weren't finding anything there. We looked through old emails. We asked the applicant to try to see if they could find a copy of that and present it. We reached out to the Buffalo office and the Auburn office of Army Corps.
And that's when they wrote this letter saying there's a, can you clarify this for me? That they have they're responding to requests for documents, but we can't find anything of the sort. And then accordingly, no records is considered adverse determination.
Meaning you can challenge that. It's more of a legal thing. Basically, I would take it on face value. Their response was that they didn't have any record.
Yeah, right.
So
I just went with the adverse statement.
So
So no
it's-
records.
we don't have records, but it's possible maybe Chad was able to find a
So
copy
that's
of
what I was
that.
hoping, because we brought that up last time, and you said you might have access to them. I think you said something.
Yeah, the previous owner delivered them to the town record keeping. As Neil has pointed out today, was not good and they were essentially lost. The previous owner does not have a copy on hand. His emails were erased from 2019 back, and that's when he had it in soft copy. I contacted Ron McLean, who is the delineator.
Mhm.
He said that he had filed it with the Corps of Engineers. I submitted FOIA requests.
Mhm.
FOIA request that you saw came back that it wasn't. Reached back out to Ron McLean, that he no longer has a copy, but it was obviously done. But there was a wetland delineation that was done and was submitted to the town for the subdivision, and the town deemed it a buildable lot and subdivided accordingly. And that's how it was sold. I do have information too. I know you want to consider the lot holistically. So I did include information about the house, although I'm not asking for a variance. Because I thought it would come up. So in the presentation, you'll see information.
Oh, I'm glad you did. I saw the little line you put it.
Yeah, it's more in depth. I mean, that letter of response was fairly, brief, just to kind of get it out there. But I'm.
Thanks, great. Go ahead, Cheryl, yeah.
What is the guy's name that did the delineation?
Ron McLean. The
Like,
name of the company.
Looking, love game.
Lucane.
Looking.
So the name of his firm is McLean Environmental. And he's no longer offering delineation services.
Okay.
I have had a professional delineator on site to flag it. Just to be proactive. Does this sort of thing for a living. He's has all the credentials. He works for an accredited company that does delineations. He flagged everything to soil samples. The house at its closest point from his flags is in excess of 160 feet from any wetland.
That's the house, yeah.
How about the driveway?
The driveway runs through the wetland.
Right through it, yeah. It has to.
Has to. And that's what the town understood at the time when they
Yeah.
approved the, it's the only means of access.
And my other question was. Adverse determination mean. We assume there is a wetland or we assume there's not a wetland?
I believe that's in relation to a FOIL request of no records. It's specific to Army Corps FOIL response. It's not adverse in relation to the wetland.
That they can find.
Accordingly, since a no records quote response is considered an adverse determination in quotes.
Yeah, and what is adverse? It's a determination of.
I must advise you of your right to appeal this determination.
I
You need
did
to appeal.
speak to the Army of Engineers local contact, Margaret Crawford, and I do have some information that she shared too. Lynn Lightning.
Yeah, no problem.
I still want to say the point, so I mean.
No, that's good. That's good.
Look at my notes. So.
So, Ken, did you have I'm not sure, was there a point of the ephemeral versus, that letter from the very short letter from the.
No, I just wanted to point out that we had those two additional pieces of
Oh, yes.
information, which sort of
Yeah, we
helped
did.
clarify the driveway part of the consideration, in my opinion.
Mhm.
But I was
Okay.
looking, I think, for more clarification again on the concept of being a quasi judicial board. The issue that's in front of us technically is the driveway, which in my understanding is what we would be focusing on. But setting that aside, if it were to create another delay for Mr. Doolittle, I just wanted to ask if that was a possibility, but it sounds like we're going back to focusing on the driveway, which is what the applicant is requesting, I think.
That's the variant I'm asking for. For the driveway. Not adhering to the buffer from a wetland.
I think, I like where you're going, what you're saying, I like what you're saying a little bit, but, I'm gonna have to ask about that house in Bend.
That's fine.
Okay,
I
so
have some information.
what do you got for us? Are you gonna?
So there's, oh, do you wanna just,
Introduction for the record. We haven't introduced it.
Oh, Mr. Doolittle? Yeah, okay, would you state your name and, just for the record?
I'm Chad Doolittle. I'm the owner of 5280 Curry Road. And the local contractor, so you can build a house there.
Okay, and we talked a lot last time, so that's why I'm kind of short this intro, but
Who's gonna answer that question from
For the core, yeah. So Maggie Crawford is the contact there, and she was generally surprised with a request to retroactively permit an installation of a driveway by a previous owner. She stated that none of the neighboring driveways in the area sharing the same characteristics had a permit at the time of installation, and existing driveways aren't expected or required to obtain retroactive permitting. Should if I was forced to pursue, she wouldn't issue a permit, the Corps would not issue a permit, they would request a letter from me outlining the situation, and they would very likely issue a letter of response stating no action would be taken. She can't put any of this in writing due to policies at the Corps, but that was her general sense of the situation.
I'm not sure I followed that totally, but all the driveways being the same, all going across the creek.
Yeah, so
across
there's-
that
so
wetland?
there's-
I didn't see that in that.
Yeah, so there's a driveway right next to me, and then there's a property a little further down the road that's for sale. So when the new owner buys that, kind of in line with what Cheryl was thinking, it's a non-conforming lot. She wouldn't expect a new owner to retroactively or be forced to retroactively seek a 404 permit for that driveway that's already in place by a new owner. So it might be a little bit different if I had put the driveway in without a permit, and so like I could just permit it, but it was a driveway that's in existence for the last 4 years, installed by a previous owner and now under my purview, so she was genuinely surprised that I was being asked to pursue it.
Last meeting, we were confused as to whether the driveway was, I mean, you told us in your presentation that the driveway had been
Yeah.
installed in 2021.
2021, I think, and this was a little confusing on
But
the,
that was kind of news to the,
right, well, it's a little confusing on the letter of public notice too, because it says recently installed, it's installed over 4 years ago by somebody else.
yeah, so there's someone thought they saw something else.
Yeah, good stuff.
So, can you say that thing about the grading? What were the three? The and or? Either grading or
So-
excavating or what?
It's under New York State Building Code for grading. So grading is defined as excavation and or fill.
Yeah, okay. So what about, doing that near the wetlands, in the wetland buffer?
That's up to the town. And the state, if the state determines there's jurisdictional wetlands and or the Army Corps.
So inside the wetland, it doesn't seem like it's, sanctioned at any level. True?
Might be
State.
worth noting, there's two distinctions. There's work in buffers and then work direct impacts to streams and or wetlands. There's,
Right. Which would be flow and everything, or?
right. So this does both. It impacts both buffers to streams and wetlands.
Right.
And then impacts at least a wetland, potentially a stream.
So
You said that it was all done before you got there. I think you told me that you put some new stuff on there. That you
Oh, I topped it,
graded and you topped it and.
we added some fresh gravel to the top of it, yeah. But we didn't install the driveway, it's already installed.
No, I didn't ask it.
So he went to get a building permit and the sticking point was.
The
We can't,
driveway.
we don't know if we want to give you this permit because we don't know if you had a permit to get this driveway.
So two things. One, staff is unsure whether or not the house is either in a wetland or a wetland buffer without a delineation.
Okay.
But two, we saw that the driveway was already constructed without permits. So it's unusual here in the town to have a driveway constructed without either a dwelling unit or commercial building. Normally it's both. right? Someone comes in for a new house, they're also constructing a driveway.
So this
So-
was constructed way before there's any building put on it, or,
Correct,
Right.
right.
and so what does that mean for us or anything? What does that mean?
In this case, it probably is, benefit's not the right word. It helps, I think, Chad, as the current applicant, to say that it wasn't a self-created hardship. It was the previous owner that did the work,
Right.
but the board still has to grapple with the issuance of the variances from the stream and wetland and or how it's gonna deal with those impacts, if any. Because the code doesn't talk about, the code, for one, doesn't talk about direct impacts. It talks about impacts to wetland and stream buffers, not actual impacts to wetlands or streams. So that's a
Our code,
our code, town code. I'm not gonna claim it.
but the other codes do, I mean, at higher levels they do, right?
But
State
the other
codes.
municipalities do, and they also talk about
What
mitigation.
state though, is it state prevention, I mean, have something to say about impeding flow of water and.
Well, that would be up to
Protecting
DEC. That would be up to DEC. And or if something triggered, this wouldn't trigger it, but under stormwater regs,
Yeah.
that threshold is really high. It's an acre disturbance, generally speaking.
Okay.
But, yeah.
Thank you.
Mhm.
That was a great question by Mr. Doolittle, though. If somebody buys the property two down, four down, whatever. And it's also crossing the stream, that same wetland, I should say.
So different, I would say that's a different case altogether, because presumably those other houses were constructed with permits. So the town already granted permits for the construction and
And you
any,
think it would have happened with the driveway and
right, in this particular case in 2021. The previous owner didn't receive all approvals and permits that were required.
Right.
So that's a distinction.
yeah, so that was actually what you presented when you first came, which is, well, they must have approved it. Back then, and that was the town's chance to say something. But in fact, they didn't, and they didn't approve that, and it never did get approved.
The only thing the town approved, the BZA approved variances for lot reduction. And then the planning board approved a minor subdivision to
See, that was
split one
that
lot.
piecemeal thing, you're just looking at one thing, we're only looking at.
Yeah.
Taking delineation and changing those boundaries and making a flag lot. That's what that first one was about. And this one is now, let's just look at the few, square meters of land that it affects, that the road goes over the wetland. I think we're back at the same place. We're just looking at one tiny little thing. I'm just wrestling with it. I'm not saying anything, I'm not weighing in one way or the other. I'm just like, okay, well, that's I think my statement about, we shouldn't be just looking at one thing. To be looking about the future and what's the setting up. Yes.
If you'd like to do the presentation, I just we go through that.
Well, I don't want to see the presentation again, but I do.
No,
want
it's
to
a
see-
different.
I do want to see any updates you had. So
I have a lot
That's
of-
great. But yeah, that'd be a great time.
Can I have the ability to share my screen?
We were just here three weeks ago. We got the.
Yeah, I'm not gonna represent anything. I've already said. Tracking?
Yeah, it was in good.
Thanks. So this is the lot in question. Everyone knows that. I'm gonna spend time reviewing that again. These are the variance factors. We've already gone over these I don't think I need to review these variance
Our
factors.
factors, did we consider?
Yeah, the
Yeah,
five, the
yeah, we
five
know.
factors.
Yeah, we know.
Well, and it's my answers to them as well. But you went over that
We
last
saw
time.
them last time, yeah.
So this was asked of me, less than 2 weeks ago, which I don't bring that up to be combative. I actually appreciate the sense of urgency, but I think that what I've got here is pretty thorough. But if you disagree, that's probably why. The first thing is the site map with, I was able to get to the surveyor and have him implement, the wetlands, slopes, streams, all of what was asked. You guys have a copy of that?
Yeah.
Description of topography, slope, soil types, I have that, it's coming up. Location footprints, bulk soil structures, I have that on the survey that you already have. And then the exact area of the buffer and setback, nature of soil changes, from water management plan, documentation of the hardship and mitigation. The first thing is the site map. This overlies the wetlands. According to this, the proposed dwelling unit is at its closest point, 159 feet from the wetlands that are shown here. When I had it flagged, it came out as 162 or 3 feet, so we're pretty in line, yes, sir.
Question.
Oh, yeah, please do.
Yeah,
Oh, I want you.
who was the,
Next question, please.
yeah, the accredited company that flagged it recently, what's their name?
ARKF.
ARK.
ARKF. Thank you.
Welcome.
Local or
They have a local office, they're also Philadelphia, DC, Virginia, Maryland, New York City.
They do a lot of environmental work for large projects.
Yeah.
Proposed parking is in excess of 100 feet from the wetland at its closest point. So again, the house and I'm not asking for a variance for those things, but I agree, a holistic view of the lot is helpful. So this shows that we're outside of those buffers. Site topography, so falling elevations from the northern farmland with the drainage tower. We talked about that last time. I'm not going to belabor that point. Tompkins County came out to evaluate the soil. It's sandy soil, excellent percolation. It passed all percolation tests for septic without the need to bring in any sandy or sand filters or anything like that. As you approach the valley, it does get more saturated. So the leach field's not slated to be in that valley, but where the house is located and at least 100 feet all the way around the house is very sandy soil. And if you've been there on the site, you can see the sand, it grades really nicely, pick it up and it's very fine.
You went, right?
What's
You
that?
went up to the house?
Yes, yeah, we had,
So did I.
I believe we had, you had given us permission
I did.
to look.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you for that. by the
Yeah,
way.
you're welcome.
It was helpful.
Shape of the property is a typical flag lot, western facing flag, eastern facing flagpole. The vegetation is the National Wetland Inventory calls it forest wetland with shrubs. There's a grove of walnut trees there. There's a lot of dead or dying walnut trees in the valley from the saturation from the
So it's
farmland.
wet, yeah.
It was wet, so we made that area wet. That the walnut trees were growing there naturally and they're pretty large, so for a long time they did well, but they're dying because it's now wet. There's no cattails, bulrushes, sedges, any plants that would indicate. Again, I'm not a professional, I'm just leaning on the professional that visited the site and what I see. But none of that's present. There's no willows, white oaks, red maples, black spruce, or any other wetland indicative trees. Just the walnuts, and they're not doing well in that area.
So you said something about the soils and I think you said it. Did you write it in there? I can't
I
remember.
did, I said it, and
But
hydrophytes. How do you say that word? Hydrophytes?
yeah, but that was the plants. But what about the soils?
Soil was more saturated in the valley. Sand with excellent percolation.
I mean, so did you, this certified person from ARKF?
Yes, he took samples. I
I took
don't,
soil samples, you said, I think.
yes,
and did what with.
Correct. Probably
Is it
determine-
analysis?
What's that?
There's an analysis somewhere?
I don't have anything written. Yeah, you know.
That's one of the criteria of whether it's wetland or not.
So ARKF did the wetland delineation, but you have nothing in writing from them?
It's not a full delineation. I'm just being proactive and getting them out
Okay.
there to flag the site. I'm hoping to not have to spend several thousands of dollars to do that because there was a recent wetland delineation. Hit the bill at the time.
So it looks like you're putting in drainage pipe.
That's footer-
Along
that's a
the
footer drain.
driveway
That's
on the
a,
upstream side.
that's a footer drain to the house.
Is that a footer drain? I'm talking about quite a ways away from the house, out along the road, the driveway.
It's the footer drain.
Okay, and that's, is that draining a wetland?
The footer
Is it
drain?
draining, no, is that draining a designated wetland?
No,
I mean, it's going right in there alongside of the driveway.
It's
and
not
it has
draining the wetland.
perforation underneath it, right?
That's where it's going, where
No,
it's,
it's not.
where it's lying right
it's
now?
not perforated. It's solid pipe. There's no perforated pipe in there.
It's perforated around the house, around the footer.
Yep.
It
But
takes the
down,
water
okay.
from there and it's a solid pipe down to,
Exactly.
why is it all the way down there?
I have to just drain it to the lowest point.
Okay,
I could daylight it sooner if you want.
I
But
just wondered.
just trying to get it out of the front yard. But no, it's not draining the wetland.
It's
Uh,
draining to the wetland though, right? I mean,
it's draining in the direction of the wetland. It's not in the flagged area.
Is that going to continue or is that the end of, that's the end of the pipe?
The end of it. The next.
so can I ask you, what you saw the, evidence of maybe building of water around there? Is that why, near the footer drainage? Why are
It's
you
a
draining?
It's standard practice for all residential.
And then just to run that pipe down into a wet area?
Well, I mean, you run it to daylight. You can run it to daylight sooner, but wherever you run it. We'll wash that area out.
You're just following.
Yeah, following the contour.
Topography.
Right. So it comes out of the northeastern side of the house. It wraps all the way around the house with perforated pipe.
Right.
Then it goes to solid pipe and it
You
comes
just go-
away
you
from
just
the
go
house.
Until you
About
finally
50
become
feet. Yeah.
council.
Exactly. That's the main purpose, so you don't have water in your basement.
Oh, sure, I get that. You said standard practice.
And this is the information in the letter that we had in advance, because what I'm hearing is what I had already read, so I just want to make sure that's we're on the same page.
Yep, I tried to summarize it in that letter
Yeah.
of response.
I got you, thank you.
This presentation is a little bit more detailed.
Thank you.
You got it. So the area of the affected buffer and setback, so the NWI actually identifies the wetland as TF01A. And that is a 4.62 acre parcel of wetland. Whoa. Oh, took off here. So the area involves 201,242 square feet. Area of the driveway within that is 183 square feet by 14, which is roughly 2,500 square feet, or 1.2% of the wetland. Areas outside, again, I agree with you, a holistic view, but areas outside of the buffer that don't require a variance. The house footprint is 1456, that's impermeable, we also asked for that. Or 0.679% of the lot size. And the parking area is only 864 square feet, again, I don't need a variance for the parking area, it's 100 feet outside of the wetland, but that's 0.4% of the lot size. Any questions about those calculations? Stormwater management, so the driveway's gravel, it's gonna permeate, the majority of stormwater will go through it, it is sloped. And it'll travel to there's 224, you asked about the specs on the culvert, so I checked that out, 224-inch culverts. That has 36,000 gallons per minute of capacity, that is a heck of a lot of water, and, at the wettest time of year, this is a trickle, right? So if we put a 5-gallon bucket at the end of that thing, we might fill it twice, so 10 gallons a minute, and the culverts there have the capacity again to move 36,000 gallons.
How'd you
of water.
calculate that? I'm just curious. It's not a flux, it's just a number of gallons, is it?
Yeah, number of gallons, it's
Per,
just available online.
You're just
capacity,
looking at the.
for capacity of,
it
yeah,
holds that.
so 1 24-inch culvert is capable of 18,000, 2 is 36.
Okay,
Is it 224s or is it?
224s.
212s? It's 224s next to each
224s.
other, right?
Yeah, it's a lot. 124 would be absolutely sufficient. Why they use 224s, I wasn't involved, so I don't know.
and then what's your, how long have you owned it? How long have you been there?
Less than a year.
So what's your feeling about how much does it go up and flow and all that? You're saying not much, is that what you're saying?
That's all the rain, the wettest
Yeah,
it's been since I've owned it was a couple weeks ago. when we
this,
got
yeah,
all of
right,
that
this
rain.
period is good.
And at that point, it was, like I said, a trickle. I mean, to call it a stream is very generous, like the ditch in front of my house moves more water
Yeah,
than that,
there's not much slope there, so I wouldn't anticipate moving much, but great, thank you.
Stormwater management outside, so there's gonna be downspouts, and I don't like to build with those laying on the grass to be run over and crushed by lawnmowers, so I put them underground. They're gonna daylight well outside of they won't go as far as the footer drain, not necessary.
Mhm.
But that amount of stormwater is pretty insignificant in relation to the lot. Hardship of not maintaining the buffer, so this is the only means of access in and out of the approved building lot. It's the pull, the flagpole, and it provides access. It does run through a wetland, similar to the neighbor right next to me. Their house is actually in that PFO 1A. Probably not thrilled to hear that, but that's the case. But their driveway certainly runs parallel with mine, and the culvert that is under my driveway actually feeds their pond, and they're dependent on it. So maintaining the buffer would make it impossible to access, and site would be useless. So that's the hardship. Mitigation, so the intrusion's already mitigated by the 2 culverts. Gravel is permeable and it's in existence already, so there's really nothing for me to mitigate. And when I did talk to the Corps, they didn't expect any mitigation to be necessary if I was forced to go ahead and so if they had pulled the permit at the time, so I did ask that question. Would there be mitigation? So they can't really speak to anything without a site engineer out there, but they wouldn't expect it based on what they saw. So New York DC has come up a few times, so I spent some time. I did try to get in touch with their jurisdictional delineator, sent him an email. My attorney sent him an email. I tried to reach out. We didn't hear back. I think similar situation to the Corps is, they're not gonna put anything in writing. But the way that they determine jurisdictional wetlands, one of the very first criteria is whether we have an area of 12.4 acres or not. That PF 1A is 4.62 acres, so it's clearly not tripled in size since whenever that high level topography was taken. So we are under the threshold, which, they have a,
They backed up all that stuff, I mean, the DEC.
well, this is on their current standard operating procedure, so there's standard
January
operating.
1st, they changed everything, they're back to wait and all that stuff.
Well, this is what's on there.
Mhm.
So they have a document published right now, their standard operating procedures. And it says that they use the NWI wetland mapper to determine the acreage. Whether that's accurate in practice now, I don't know, I just know what their current operating procedure is, and that's what it states that it does. So this shows the wetland again, and the fact that it's 4.62 acres, but also they have a flow chart on their website. And one of the first things in the flow chart is, does this exceed 12.4 acres or no? If it doesn't, we jump down. If it's a yes, then we get a positive parcel jurisdiction, and then they go on and on and on to about 100 more different boxes. But if it's negative, it's less than 12.4, they send a letter out, and there's no further action, essentially. So it did say that they are reducing the acreage to 7 point something in 2028, but we're nowhere near that, and there's nothing around there that is unusual characteristics as far as, but I can tell with a professional that we had look at the lot could tell. We already talked. Excuse me, we already talked about the Army of Engineers response. This came up last time and I did a little digging into it. This is the current County Ulysses code. There's a lot of opinions around this. I know there's going to be opinions now, but this is what's written. Stream and wetland protection. The U.S. Geological Survey topographical maps will be used to classify intermittent and perennial or permanent streams. Those streams have a 25-foot setback on either side, according to our code. This is the USGS map. This is the area in question. There's no stream indicated on this map, whether it's outdated or not, or in our opinion or not, it's not relevant. It's in the current code that this is what. Where'd you go? Yeah. I'm freezing. That's what we're supposed to use, the USGS maps. I don't understand what's going on here. Oh, here we go. So there is, the only stream that's demonstrated here is far north, and it feeds into Boulder Creek, which is down here. But the area that we're talking about, there's nothing there. Whether the Tompkins County classifies it as a stream, intermittent, permanent, or otherwise, our code says that we're supposed to use this map.
And yet, but the stream is there and it feeds the pond next door and it's important to feed that pond, right?
I don't know if I call it a stream. The water that flows through there feeds the pond at times of wet. When it's very wet, like it was in the last 2 weeks, the water accumulates in there, flows almost like it would in a drainage ditch alongside the road into that pond and fills it up. You know, I'm not a professional in determining what makes a stream and what doesn't, but it doesn't.
Can I just interrupt for a question?
Sure can,
So that is our zoning code.
correct.
Niels. Did you say there's something that happened in January of this year that was in addition to this? That is actual
That's
legal,
that's the DEC. That's their new regs for wetlands, not for streams. So that became effective January 1st of this year.
As DC.
and that's an overlay onto our zoning that we do acknowledge and work with.
That's, I mean, DEC's regulation, that's up to their review. We're still working with the code that we have right now.
Which says to use the USGS maps.
So there's a distinction, streams and wetlands, two different things. So what happened in January 1st was DEC's amendment to their wetland regs, or freshwater, I should clarify, freshwater wetland regs, not for streams.
Right, but how is it being enforced here, or is it in addition to our zoning, is it being enforced, does it need to be enforced?
Or DEC's wetlands, or, because we're talking about the streams right now, but are we talking, do you want to ask about the DEC wetlands now? Chad was just talking about the streams, I think that.
Right. That's part of the buffer that we're talking about. So I'm reading the code as black and white. A stream wouldn't be considered as a buffer violation because there's no stream on the USGS map, and our code says that if it's on the USGS map, it's not a stream.
Yeah, so I'm just trying to figure out if there's another thing besides the zoning that is at play, and we just are the zoning appeals, so we do the zoning.
So for the streams, I can clarify, and one reason I was wanting, yeah, we've been here before. We know that the code has conflicts in some cases, like here, the one that Chad pointed out, it says 25 feet. Another section of code, it says 50 feet. We had town legal is in review because the planning board has also been working through this to try to see if the zoning code should be amended because of inconsistencies. There are sections of code, like the definitions, that say the maps need to go USGS. Topo. there's another section of code under section 124. Subsection B point 4.c, which says that classification of streams will be done by US Geological Survey topo maps or by a New York State licensed geologist or by Tompkins County Soil and Water Conservation. So there's three things, and legal said because of that, all three of those must be considered equal. So neither one, even though under definitions it says USGS maps, per legal, all three of those have to be considered equally. So that's why we reached out to Tompkins County Soil and Water. They did a site assessment and said it does appear there's a headwater stream that goes into, so next door DEC is designated as a class C, which means it's a fishing stream next door. But USGS only indicates presence of wetlands, not a stream.
Okay, so that sort of backs up what Angel was saying, which is it's just a small headwater stream on the parcel that runs through the wetland. It definitely can't say if it's ephemeral or perennial without local knowledge. We have some local knowledge now, knowing that it's as wet as it has been. I think it's pretty safe to assume there's probably more of the ephemeral concept than a perennial, is what I think I'm hearing.
And the code doesn't define ephemeral. Some municipalities do distinct or define perennial, intermittent, and then ephemeral.
Yeah.
So presumably interpretation here is that anything that is ephemeral would be intermittent. Ultimately, I would presume as an administrator that it's a sticking point because the driveway is going through that area. But when we're talking buffers, it's essentially moot because you have a stream, but its buffers go here, but you have a wetland that maybe starts there and its buffers supersede that,
Okay.
if that makes sense. So
Yeah, I mean, the buffers don't matter at all here because of through it. So.
Well, they do, I think they do matter. You got a road going through there and
I mean, whether it's
been
25
told
or
that it
50.
doesn't matter, that I'm not gonna do anything to change the buffers because it was a hardship. To provide for the buffers, didn't you just say that?
Oh, we can't, well, I mean, they
It's
can't,
somewhat of a hardship to deal with the buffer.
you can't not go through.
Right, there's no avoidance.
No, I agree, but
Yeah.
but
No
I think
avoidance
there's
of the
something you
buffer.
can do to ameliorate.
Okay, okay.
Even if
So I
the
think
buffer
buffers do
was,
matter.
even if the buffer was 1 foot, it's not avoidable, we go over it.
Yeah, I got that, I mean,
Okay. Sorry, so I.
but that doesn't mean you can't maintain buffers, though, you can't do something to ameliorate. some
Right, I think that's what the
I mean,
purpose
There's
of
some
the-
things we can consider here, like.
Right, I think that's what the purpose of the culvert was.
Um,
That the town,
I didn't think so. No, I was talking about the buffer zones themselves, like you have a linear feature, and the buffer is everything outside of that linear feature, and so it's 25 feet or 50 feet or 100 feet, depending on what you're. So I'm just looking to see some relief for that. What are you gonna do with the lawn that goes up to the edge of that? The road goes through, there's some wet area, and what's the plan for that buffer around that wet area? What's your plan?
can I see where you're talking about? You're losing me.
Well,
Can you show me on the map what you're?
so I mean, you're saying there's no stream there whatsoever, and we don't even we don't have one, was that your intention here? I don't agree with you, by the way, but,
Oh, no,
Okay.
that's an opinion thing, I'm saying that our code says it does not, but
well, there's a few
there's
different
a couple of
competing
things.
codes, right, so
Yeah.
I can see that you shows that, and I'm not sure when that was photo inspected in 1975 or something, so I'm not sure I would pick that one. You
Well,
might
that's
just
just
look
what's-
that up.
That's just what the town told me to do. I just wanted to.
Yeah,
do it,
there are other things, but, so, I don't wanna keep going down this little thing here,
No, I'm
but you have
See what you mean.
show me where you.
Run this one that you.
Yeah. Yeah, all right, go ahead, driveway and where you calling the not stream, ephemeral, or,
Green?
yeah,
Where's the culvert? Right here,
Go ahead.
culvert,
Go ahead.
so,
okay, so that's a linear feature and you need to have a buffer around either side of it, that's all I'm saying. So what do you, what's your plan for, edges outside of the road?
On either side?
Yeah, or
Well, I
you know,
don't-
the property that comes down.
You don't own
I
past
Where's
that.
your,
I don't own it, I can't do anything with it. It's gonna be as it is right
where
now.
is it on here?
Just here.
I just wanna know where your
This is,
property picks up,
so this is,
way past
my,
that, right?
my property starts up here,
Okay, so that's way past that.
right?
Mhm. And then what about in here? What are you doing here? This is road and road takes on most of it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that is interesting. The part we're talking about isn't even on.
Right,
Okay.
I do have a letter to make people to read, they own this property.
Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
Oh, good. That'd be great. I was like,
I'm not being argumentative, I just didn't
No,
understand.
me neither, me neither.
I just didn't understand.
I actually was thinking it was farther up, so I'm glad you
So
clarified.
there's nothing impermeable, it's grass, as much as grass can
Mhm.
grow, and sand.
Mhm.
And then this will remain as natural as it is currently, there's no plan for anything. in it. I don't think anyone will want it. I think whoever buys this, no, at least. I may have lost the sale due to this issue, but
Sure,
clients-
yeah, sorry about that.
clients are, I'm not actually gonna tell you. The clients that are interested in this, like the natural setting of the. In the features, and I think that that's what anyone who buys this house will. I mean,
Great, so I guess, so when we're in here and you're gonna leave that driveway the way it is, or are you gonna put surface on that?
I'm not gonna put asphalt on it.
Okay.
Top it with a little 2 inches of crusher on, just to dress it up. It's gonna remain down.
Good, thank you.
You got it.
Haven't heard from you, Karen.
I haven't really had anything special to add. Stated, but. I think maybe what jumped out at me the most is the question of. How many driveways do we have in town of Ulysses that are out of compliance? And we aren't asking them to be reevaluated every time there's a sale. So I do see.
I don't know if that's true. I mean, that's what I was asking before. Would we? Good, that was a good question.
Short answer, longer.
Yeah, short one, it's going across the wetland and.
So
For sale.
again, the short answer, again, the distinction is a dwelling unit that was previously approved by the town. Presumably the code official issued everything in relation to that. But this driveway wasn't issued a permit or approval. Bigger picture though, so Ulysses is changing, prices are increasing. More and more properties are being acquired by people outside of the area, they're not being sold to family members and so on. What we're seeing already more of is people requesting what's called code compliance or code verification letters. Part of that is because financial institutions require that as part of their due diligence before they issue mortgages. So we're seeing higher mortgages and everything else. The code official officer and the zoning officer can't issue a letter to these institutions if we find that there is work that was done without permits and is not compliant. There's a difference between a non-conforming building that was built prior to code existing, that's one issue, those are okay. But we find issues where this is more along the lakeshore zone in your neighborhood. Unfortunately, there is a lot of construction done without permits, that's illegal. So we've subsequently have had code violations pop up that then we need to enforce.
Everybody agree?
I was not. Worried about that.
No, Karen, that was a good point, that was good. So I don't know. Do we do that? Yeah, we might.
So I guess maybe to kind of further flesh that out, like the neighbors that are all along there, yes, they aren't compliant with code. If the neighbor's house actually is in a wetland, I mean, it's not conforming. If they ever wanted to do an addition,
Yeah, then we go.
they would have to come to the BZA for impacts to those wetlands prior to the building official being able to legally issue a construction permit.
Which is what we run into in the lake a lot down there. And someone wants to do an addition, it's like. They're already non-conforming right now and it just triggers the whole thing.
Wetlands change over time,
Oh,
as
there's
we
no
talked about, and so like, I don't know if this is a good example, but say, beavers affect the landscape. And then they create a whole new wetland that wasn't previously wetland. And and somebody wants to build in there, that's a new wetland now. Or it changes, would that change an existing driveway into non-conforming if it wasn't a wetland previously, but then it became one?
So two different things. Yes,
Yeah.
wetlands change all the time. Either they can be created by nature or human activity. It can also go the reverse, right? There can be lost, there can be areas that we know that are wetlands and then something happens and there's no longer wetland. So Army Corps has long held a 5-year sunset on delineations. DEC and their new regs just adopted something similar, so they have a 5-year time limit. Because wetlands do change, their boundaries change all the time. Ulysses code doesn't talk about anything like that. It doesn't have any provision on that.
Figure that one out, right? Yeah. Thanks for bearing with us, by the way. We're open to these areas. So it helps us make all these decisions.
Okay.
I think some of the things that are adding to my confusion are that we talk about a lot like, the Army Corps, the DEC, ARKF, and a wetland delineation map. We can't look at any of those things. They don't seem to exist anywhere. Is that, I mean, on paper, you know what I mean? Something, location map,
It did exist and it was submitted to the town and it was lost.
and it was lost, but they don't so maybe they did.
So those would be, and that was another question that popped up. It's like, well, those are kind of 6 years, those are 6 years ago. And outside of,
It would have
5
sunset.
years, 5 years, 9 months ago.
Hmm.
so that was another question that Niels put to us is like, well, we should think about that. Well, is that still applicable or not? I'm concerned about water, especially, you know, we're getting a lot more rain and a lot more intense rainfall. Sometimes huge amounts of rain in a really short time, like last week,
Just so.
actually, right, or whenever there was. And that's all the models are confirmed. I mean, they're just confirming the models, actually. So we all know what's happening. So I'm not, I don't feel good about going back 6 years on a wetland delineation, but I really felt good about ARKF. Someone who's certified and they knows their stuff and
Yeah.
but I need to see stuff spatially. I would feel really good if you showed me a map of that. That would have been great if you came up with that.
Was not able to produce that in the
And
short
maybe
time.
the soils reports and stuff of it.
Well, I mean,
I mean, I appreciate
a
you
lot
said
of
there's
money
no
and time
cattails.
that-
I like
Yeah.
the work you did. No cattails and a few other obvious things, but,
right.
um,
I spent endless amounts of money on this. I'm trying
Yeah.
to like prove that it's
No,
not a
I get it.
wetland, it's not a big deal,
I get
but it's fairly obvious to anyone who builds or excavates that this is a non-issue for the lot. And all the rain we just got, there would be no personal safety to anyone that inhabits that house. It's well away from anything that would cause damage or problem. That was kind of the question.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
All right, I know it's a lot of details,
But
tons, but I'm feeling like this is. Needs a variance. I mean, I think it's one of the best examples of where we could give someone a variance to. It's very important to them, very large benefit to the owner, and very little benefit, I mean detriment to anyone else. So I'm thinking, even with the details.
Many other humans? Environment, you talk about
It's
environment?
anyone, I mean, it's already there, and it's a trickle, and. Everyone else's driveway goes across the same thing, so it doesn't disrupt the neighborhood or anything. I'm just seeing it as a very strong candidate for a variance, and I would wonder if we could. Move in that direction.
I agree with that.
I agree with that.
Kim?
Right.
Absolutely. I was just gonna ask something similar and say, we're already an hour and 10 minutes into this.
Yeah, but we're not gonna worry about time unless you got
We
something.
should worry about time because it's a consideration to everybody that's here.
I think
And,
it's really important for us to deliver.
It is, but then-
Conscientious.
and we deliberated last time as well, but my concern is if we keep going, we go past today, then what are we gonna ask them at the next meeting?
Well, I didn't.
So I'm just saying,
We didn't say we were.
I didn't say you did that either, but what I'm saying is it would be nice to look at the resolution and we've gone through the process of posting for the public hearing. And I think that we have to actually, correct me if I'm wrong, go through that process first, public hearing, or no, can we draft or approve a resolution without that?
You need to hold a public hearing and close it prior to issuance of the resolution.
But if we hold a public hearing, then the clock starts for,
The clock only starts once the hearing is closed.
Okay.
And then it's a 2-month time period unless there's an agreement between the board and the applicant to extend that.
So
This is not a public hearing. Is that what we're saying?
this is a public, yeah, there's a public notice.
There's notice, but
it wasn't open.
it hasn't yet been open, right? They're just discussing right now.
Oh,
Oh, but the public meeting, it's happening tonight.
Maybe. That's up to them.
I thought that,
It's up to us
okay,
to decide that. So
so what was
I'm
that?
hearing some good stuff here.
What was
I-
that, what was
I
that
like-
posting?
We gave notice just in case they decide to post or open the public hearing.
Right, which I'm gonna ask the public to weigh in just a minute, but if you bear with me.
Sure.
There are some suggested conditions of approval. And I kind of like them. Did anybody really look at those? And,
Yeah.
when you think about this.
Yeah, I think that some of these things could be good for us.
Bro, it's yellow.
Did you get, so Chad has to see the condition, because it's just a draft, am I right?
It's just a
No,
draft.
just
Right,
ask
so he has
It's just a
to see
draft.
whether we want to put this up forward or not.
And this would just be for the driveway.
Right, when the driveway crosses in across the way. So can I make a suggestion, like, check the ones that you think are appropriate? And that you can get behind, or don't check any, or.
We talk about wetland and buffer here, and I just keep coming back to where is it? You know what I mean? Now, my former company, Davy Resource Group, does wetland delineations, and we would never go in and do a wetland delineation without any kind of, report or follow-up or, you know what I mean? Without something in writing after the delineation was done, we probably wouldn't just go in and just flag that station and walk away. And so I guess my question is, I'd like to see where exactly the wetland is in there, 5 or 6 years ago, it's sunset.
When you were on the site, did you not see the
Yeah.
flags?
Yeah.
Okay, the flags were like a long ways away from the house, like 160 feet from the house.
The house, I'm talking about.
The driveway.
The driveway, yeah.
There's no, I mean, I can't move the driveway.
Just, just like I keep going back to that, we don't see anything from. Army Corps, the DEC, ARKF, or valid
Right.
wetland delineation map.
Well, I gave you
I
the,
think we've asked for those.
well, I've given you the DEC criteria, which is 12 acres. This is the third of that.
Yeah, but we do know that stuff already, so. He's asking more specific than that. I mean, I appreciate that, we.
I know. It sounds like you would like me to undergo more time, more expense, get a professional delineation done with something on paper. If it,
I think we
an
asked
ideal-
for it, I think Andy's, sorry, Andy.
Yeah, it's okay, go
I
ahead.
think we asked for it last time, and you said no problem, you.
I didn't say no problem. I said I would attempt to get
You didn't
it,
say
and
no
I
problem.
have attempted to get it in any means necessary.
Right, I
If
think
I,
that's a fair question, like.
no, I'm not, I'm just trying to answer it. I would love to have that to provide to you, but the town record keeping wasn't good. And the delineator that did it at the time that I didn't hire because this is something created before me. Apparently, his record keeping is not good. The previous owner sold this lot and didn't retain anything, it's unable to access it. But it was done and it was provided to the town and it was good enough at the time to approve. As a
And
building.
ARKF's records?
ARKF didn't do the original.
No, this one, the recent one, though.
Yeah, what about?
We have those records. Yeah, I mean, we have something from ARKF and this recent delineation.
Well, I could get something if needed, but I'd like to resolve this thing at some point.
I feel like the expense, like, I think Neil's mentioned $4,000, that seems beyond what, I would wanna pay if I was getting.
I mean, to be,
But it's already been done, I think.
no,
No,
it's not been done, so,
they came out and looked at it, but they haven't done the reporting,
right,
which is
it's,
like,
that's where the
where the
money
big
comes.
bucks come in.
Yeah, that doesn't sound like, a wetland delineating company with professionals that do
Well, they
that.
can send out their grunt person, put up flags or something, but then when they have to stamp and all that, it's probably why the money, I'm just.
Another local,
I'm talking
it's another
about-
local guy, the delineator, his name is Jerry Peak, he's been doing this for a long time. Lives right here in town, and he did me a favor. And his company funded it, and I will be invoiced at some point. For his time. That's all they're able to provide. In time for this. So that was, 3 weeks turnaround, that's all I had.
You see my problems, all
Well,
right?
I see that you don't like the uncertainty, but I just keep going back to the fact that the town approved this. At a building lot with one means of access. And this has already cost me several, like thousands of dollars. $4,000 at the beginning, I would love to pay $4,000 and move on, we are. Well beyond that, right now, this project will lose money for my family and, will threaten my continued employment of local contractors and local businessmen and, just to absorb another $4,000 and then to wait another 3 weeks minimum for you guys to be able to meet again. If this was not so obvious, I guess to me, then I would understand a little bit better. I know that not every T was crossed, but this non-granting of a variance in the beginning of a driveway running through a wetland that was known was a non-crossed T by the town. I don't feel like I should have to suffer any further from that mistake.
I'm sorry you had to go through all this. That's not, I mean,
I'm-
we appreciate the pain and agony and all that stuff, but we also have to balance it. We're not doing this to give you a hard time or to make you spend more money. We're actually deliberating to see what we can do to make this.
I
less
appreciate that.
painful.
I'm
And that's
just,
what the variance thing is all about too.
I'm just trying to answer Mr. Helmut's
There's
question.
rules and the rules were violated, whatever word you want to use there, it seems a bit strong, but, so that's why we're talking about how do we alleviate this?
Mhm.
Can we, can we rectify it, it's a little bit late for some of that stuff. So if this is not aimed at you, I hope you don't take this personally. It ends up, affecting you greatly, which is one of our pretty important considerations there.
Will we talk about the conditions of approval? I think we started to go down that.
I'm there.
and then we-
I did my job.
So I'm gonna, if it's okay, I'll start and say that I personally am concerned about 4 and 6. Those seem like they could be pretty costly. I'm not sure I fully understand 4. That means that there has to be more vegetation planted or trees there, but 6 would be really expensive. And I personally wouldn't want signs on my property. I'm just saying that. I know that sounds awful, but I wouldn't want signs every 500 feet on my property saying wetland protection area. So that's just a personal opinion, but a true opinion is a split rail fence is gonna be a costly expense for that area. So I am struggling with that a little bit as a condition.
I agree,
Okay.
also with 4, and even with 1, because it's just so confusing what authorizations are needed, that. That could take forever. No, am I wrong?
So For that one, the code says may be required to have fed and state, so. It puts the building official in an awkward position. That's why thankfully most of these go to the BZA, so it's up to the BZA to grapple with whether or not it's going to require what's called a jurisdictional determination from the feds. So the current code says may be required.
Mhm.
That's for the road or that's for the building?
Construction
Any
permit.
variance, any impact to buffers or direct impacts to streams and wetlands. Yeah, it's a may.
So he's gonna have to do that anyway, what you're saying?
Well, Town legal is in that they're currently drafting boilerplate language that Mark can put on his building permits that say, hey, you got a variance or signed plat approval, whatever, from the planning board. It appears that there are state and or federal wetlands on site. You may need to acquire permits, something like that, to basically keep the town safe and Mark's position, the building official safe. However, because the term may is on our record, it's up to the BZA to determine whether or not that's going to be required. If you choose not to, if the board chooses that it's not required, then that boilerplate language that legal will craft will be put onto the building permit issuance.
This
For
one
this one.
specifically.
Yeah,
And other ones like this.
well,
Just-
for this one specifically, since it's kind of the first that we've seen.
Yeah.
And we don't really have time to figure out all that. It doesn't seem like it's figured out by anyone yet. I would say, I vote no for one. On this one specifically, but
But I
not
didn't like that
necessarily.
he said, when anyone like this, it'll go.
Yeah,
along with
so
it.
I would say not for
I don't
other
think
ones
that,
maybe. Just for this one, the variance doesn't apply to other things. This would just be for this specific case that is. I think time. Is of the essence in some ways, because we've already been so confused over so many things.
So maybe I don't. Sometimes I try to make my words come out. in my
Yeah,
head,
all right,
so-
no, go ahead.
So if the board decides to not require it, it's, since the code says may, if you don't have that as a condition, legal will be drafting language that will go onto the building permit issuance that basically tries to keep the towns as safe as possible in case, because what has happened in the past is municipalities grant construction permits. Army Corps and or DEC find out that construction was done without their permits. They cite fines. Sometimes they say you have to remove everything, which
Right.
comes back costly. Property owners then come back and sue the municipality because they were granted a permit. So that's why legal is drafting language to try to safeguard the town as much as possible.
Well, that's fine, can they draft it for this only and not that boilerplate that applies to everything? I mean, I don't like the idea of setting precedent, and I was asked to be on this board. I don't agree with it, and I actually looked up a lot of court cases that just because we say something now doesn't mean that's setting precedent. I think, we try to be consistent in what we do, and we're pretty good about that. But everything's different. I mean, we're trying to weigh out this very specific case here, and considering all those factors, then I would hesitate to say, yeah, anything like this.
So in this case, if the board says that a JD is required, or some verification letter from DEC or Army Corps prior to building permit issuance, then that language isn't going to be on the building permit because we already have that as a record from those agencies.
Okay, I think Steve and I are both interested in it, not, like, we don't. I don't think we want that to be boilerplated in to your building permits forever forward, because it's not really the intention. We're just trying to let this person who bought a lot that thought it was already fine and approved, move ahead, not the whole. Not to make a big decision for the whole municipality.
Okay, I think we're not syncing up.
From my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, please.
No.
Your town attorney has been involved with this because
Sure.
it stems from some issues at the town. And he's offered a way for you to approve this to move forward and to protect the town at issuance. I don't think that by doing that, I think you're concerned that that means every permit forever is gonna have that language on it. I don't think that's the case. I think just this permit would have that.
So it's not the variance, so it's nothing with the BZA.
Or your
It's the-
decision about number one,
It's
rather.
construction permit,
Yeah, I'm sorry, your decision about number one.
Right.
so
Well, I haven't read number one, but
Yeah, all necessary state federal authorization pertaining impacts to the wetland stream shall be obtained and submitted to the town prior to issuance of construction permits.
Yeah,
And we're talking about the driveway, which is already done, so he doesn't need a permit, he just needs a variance.
he does need a permit.
He needs a permit for the driveway,
no, we need a permit to build a house.
As-
right, we're talking about the driveway.
Okay, so the driveway was never permitted by the town.
Doesn't,
It needs a permit either on its own or as a sub-permit to the construction of the dwelling unit.
So this would be.
it was
for
never
the-
permitted, and so we're,
right, so this would be for the driveway,
The variance is for the
Who paid for
driveway.
that?
variance is for the driveway.
Who pays for the permit of the driveway that wasn't enforced by code enforcement at the time?
It's part of the building construction, so the fees that you've already applied
That's
for,
what's in.
it's part of that.
$2,000, that check's already been cashed a long time ago.
okay,
That's part of them.
All right, procedural question.
Okay,
So, again, we can't vote on the resolution until we open a hearing, close a hearing, and then we would vote on a
before you
resolution.
move on,
I'm asking
I wanna
because
ask
if,
Karen,
should we be, why are we spending time on the resolution if we don't even know if we're gonna go to public hearing? So I was asking procedurally,
right, that
like,
makes sense.
what's the process? What, chicken or eggs, which comes first?
this.
The
this
resolution comes first?
No, let's say our discussion comes first, and then we'll decide whether to open and we'll move forward, whether we can move forward.
But we're
Right
discussing
now-
a resolution right now,
conditions of approval.
These are conditions.
which is in the resolution. So that's what I was asking, like, which comes first, the chicken or the egg?
Yes.
Should we open, I mean, or are we discussing this and it's a moot point because we haven't done the hearing and that this would come after?
No, we're discussing some details of this, and I wanna hammer them out, well, we're gonna give Karen a chance to talk about it and see what she says. So far, I'm taking, I agree totally with you. I agree mostly and totally with you, I think, and I want to hear from Karen.
Can we just hear from Niels though, and just, which is the procedural process,
And
which comes first in the process of this board?
in this case, it is up to the chair. So, but the town or any board cannot make a final decision on a resolution until after the public hearing has proceeded.
Thank you.
I can wait, go after Karen.
What do you got, Karen?
I really don't have anything further to add beyond what was,
You're okay with some of the other ones?
I mean, what was already stated about, regarding these
Yeah,
specific
those
things.
specific, I'm just saying we can move forward after. I like that we got some good agreement on that, three of us at least.
Yeah, I mean, agreed with those concerns. And then more generally, I just thought we should try to move forward with really discussing the variance, I think, as soon as possible.
Great, and then,
Yeah, well, I checked some things that I thought were good on these
Yeah.
conditions, so. Number one, as it applies to construction permits, I think it's good. I like the, number two, no other grading, including excavation or fill of stream, wetland or associated buffer shall be permitted without prior approval. But from whom?
yeah,
Should
that's a
we
good question.
state from whom there if we build there? Then,
Is there an answer to that?
no, well, yeah.
We can do that
We don't
later.
need an answer.
Okay.
It's second, but, yeah.
Good
Then,
question.
land clearing and grading, limited to a minimum necessary. I'm having some problems with that language, is. I guess we know it's minimum necessary, but it's kind of wishy-washy in there, you know, like, I don't know how they tighten it up at the moment. But I like, 5, a lot, parking and storage of vehicles shall be prohibited on driveway. Located in wetland and its buffer, but that comes right back to where's the wetland?
Yeah.
And,
Well, install.
so if we're saying you can't be,
That's, I think
so you're
that's what.
saying if we can't be, prohibited, you can't park there in the wetland area, then there isn't the entire driveway, I don't know, according to flags, it isn't, right? And so somewhere on the driveway you could park, and somewhere on the driveway, if we pass this condition, you can't park, but I don't know where that is. That's,
What about the last one?
the stormwater, yeah, the assessment letter about the culvert, so it sounds like, what I've heard, again, is that those two 24-inch culverts are sufficient. I don't know that we've seen anything in writing about that, but.
So this one says should be submitted to the town's building official with stormwater engineer and the list.
Yeah,
What do you guys think about that?
That sounds like more
It sounds like it's onerous as number one. doesn't it?
work to me, because it's already there and it's plenty big.
And just, didn't you say the town agencies installed the culverts?
They installed a culvert at the road
right
entrance.
in the right of way.
So again, it's an unpermitted driveway that the town installed.
They didn't install that culvert,
They installed the culvert at the road.
the one at the road, yeah.
And that's one of the two 24-inch culverts we're discussing.
No,
No,
those two are
there's-
through
They're
the
in farther.
creek bed,
Thank you.
but it's just, I don't know how the town performed that act if it was unpermitted and didn't.
Road
enforce it.
construction
Driveway. Yeah, right, whatever.
and, so, yeah, the culvert's within the right of way of the town.
It's up to
road.
them, they don't need permits.
Oh,
What else? So we didn't like 7, I didn't really like 7.
I like 7, I like 5,
And-
3 and 2,
Okay, we are,
and 8,
5,
5, 3, 2 and 8.
I was giggling at 5, I'm like, don't ever have a graduation party at this house.
say 5, 3, 2, 8.
Yeah.
I'm with you there.
So 5 is okay, I'm sorry, 2 is okay, 3 is okay, and 8,
2 and 3 for sure, I didn't really like 1, and I don't like 7.
I do not like 4 and 6,
4,
or 7, I guess now too.
4, yeah, I don't like. I'm totally with you on that. Okay,
There's not a lot of science at 500, every 500 feet,
It's the cost of the rail.
yeah. That's science,
it's also
but it's not
the
like,
road, going on the road and then you gotta do it, right, yeah. I mean, it's back to what you corrected me on, which is very little of this flagpole is really at the wet. I mean, the whole flagpole is with very little terrain.
Mhm.
Okay, I feel that. Who wants to take this on as a,
You have to do it open,
Hmm?
open thing.
yeah, thank you, thanks for that.
A question. The letter from the Cooperman, should I read that during the public?
Yeah, in a second, I'll ask you in a second, that'd be great. And I wanted to ask Niels, do we have any additional input from the public,
We did not
Notes.
receive any that I'm aware of now.
from neighbors, okay, and you have one from the neighbor, you said? Yeah, sure, that'd be a great time to do it, and then I'm gonna open this up to the public.
Oh, read it before that, okay.
Yeah, sure, why not?
So this is from the Coopermans. I have a copy of this. for you.
Yeah, that'd be great if you could give it to Carissa, that'd be awesome.
We are writing in full support of Chad Doolittle application. We're familiar with this project and own properties on Curry Road. Our residence is 5134 Curry Road and our rental property is 5288 Curry Road. Which abuts to the Doolittle property on the east and north side of that land. This project is consistent with the rest of the properties on the north side of Curry Road. Built on the same geographical plane as most of the other properties are located on. In addition, most of those driveways cross the same geography to build driveways and homes. We initiated a subdivision that was approved with a survey acceptance and provided with the town of Ulysses seal, illustrating the complete wetland delineation and anticipated driveway and building site that became Mr. Doolittle's property. As part of our application, we submitted all requested documentation to the town that was asked for. Following that approval, the town constructed the original culvert and the driveway's entrance. As per protocol, the town specifications, we paid for that original culvert pipe and the town completed the work. We are familiar with the many fine projects that Mr. Doolittle has undertaken and are confident of his integrity, both as a builder and a community member. We support his completion of this project, and we believe it will both enhance and conform to the character of Curry Road. Thank you very much, Denise and David Cooperman.
Excellent, thank you. Give that to copy of Carissa, that'd be awesome.
Thank you.
Right, at this time, I want to open the, meeting in order to hear comments from the public, on the proposal at hand only. If you'd like to make a comment, don't forget to state your name, please, and, limit yourself to brief and relevant, comments. So anybody out in Zoom landia want to, ask questions? Anybody in the audience? It's a good time for them.
Would you like to speak? You're speaking.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Excellent. And introduce yourself so we can get through
Yes,
this.
can we come up here?
Sure. Wherever you're comfortable.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah, perfect.
My name is Phil McGuire and I'm a resident at 320 Pennsylvania Avenue and 336 Pennsylvania Avenue. I own property around the corner and I am exactly 1,864 feet from my backyard to this backyard. And I'm here primarily to be in support of this project, as is the Coopermans. I have lived in this property for 47 years. And I actually know this property very, very well from being a child. I will tell you that encompassing 200 acres of this property, there are over 16 man-made ponds. And all of this land was farm field when I was a kid, that then turned into the back nine of the golf course. So I've grown up on it. I know it better. You said I would love to have a local source. Your local source is right here, and I'm happy to answer any questions about all of the homes that were built there, from when the Mills Paws moved in to the Drakes that lived next door and sold it. And of course, the Coopermans a long time ago when they lived on the other side of town and before they built their home. And so I can tell you that every single driveway there has a man-made issue with water that has created this particular problem. And as you can see from the Cooperman's letter, they did their due diligence. They are very reputable people in our community for a very long time. And they have just said wholeheartedly about the liability on the taxpayers of this mess that we have right now. And so I just want to, I can't vocally say how appreciative I am of that letter and how much of, I don't want to say, use a negative connotation of disgrace or disappointment, but from a context of doing everything the right way within the last 6 years and the law changes to where we got here, I am just absolutely feel that Chad and Doolittle is a victim of circumstances that 100% warrant why he's here. Why have this person spend thousands of dollars? It's a wetland. That's the whole point. That's why he's here. Let's fix it for them. Let's give them the variance. Let's not put considerations on a future family moving into the community which is exactly what the neighborhood is like, what the neighborhood has, and why put considerations that you wouldn't want on your own property when we don't have to? How do we not park a car on a driveway in a wetland when the driveway is not wet? Does that make any sense?
I don't understand what you're saying.
So just considerations about parking or certain things around a driveway that already exists, when arguably removing it would be more environmentally hurtful than leaving it there and providing variance. But just keep in mind that my point is that the considerations that you make, please know that would you have those on your own property for the next generation in your family? And so that's my 2 cents there. And in summary, and I apologize, I'll try to be brief. This project will increase the tax rolls and it will help the community. This project is moving a family into a beautiful home that is consistent with a comprehensive plan for this area. Clearly, it's been approved as a flag lot with a driveway. There's no question that we have lost documentation. So to burden Chad to do more, I feel would be unfair. The driveway passes through a 14-foot width that has 2 24-inch culverts that let the water pass by. It's, again, I believe more egregious to remove the driveway at this point than it would be to leave it in grant variance. So if you have any questions for me growing up in the area or knowing how this property has evolved over 47 years, I'd be happy to answer that. But literally as a neighbor and someone that has watched this whole situation unfold, I just urge you not to make a mountain out of a molehill or get lost in translation that I've seen so many times on development projects in my own personal experience. And to try to approve this project as efficiently, quickly as possible, hopefully tonight, with little to no considerations or extra reports, and just call it what it is a simple variance. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ware. Lot of good points in there. Thanks a lot for presenting them. Anybody else in the public? Okay, good. If there are no more comments, this portion of the public hearing is now concluded. I think, is there someone willing to take this on? Is there a motion on the floor?
To take on. the
Yeah, just,
resolution.
yeah, we need a motion first.
I'm sorry, motion for the resolution?
Sure. We can resolve it. You can make a motion for anything right now, including the resolution. If you want.
I would like to move that we do what we have to do now. I
Yeah,
don't know
move
what you're,
forward on the
move forward on the resolution, that'd be great.
Okay. Second that?
I'll second it.
All right, good. Leave this open to discussion, or do you want to start doing it now? Who wants to take this on? Because we gotta read this, and I think
I'd
the
be
way
happy
we
to.
normally do it is, if you don't mind, we'll say, if you're having a little, like sometimes I'm like, I don't like that, and take help from somebody else.
Sure.
Friendly amendments, but it's totally up to you. This is your resolution.
I'm happy to read it. It's the first time I'm doing this, so
Okay.
for certain nails, if I do something
No
wrong,
comments.
please,
Yeah.
yeah, don't let me go astray.
No.
Okay, so we're looking at Board of Zoning Appeals Resolution number 2025-002. A resolution for 2 area variances for the Doolittle dwelling unit located at 5280 Curry Road, Town of Ulysses. Tax parcel 12 dot -1 -13.4. And for 5288 Curry Road, Town of Ulysses, tax parcel 12 dot -1 -13.2. Whereas a request for 2 area variances was requested, oops, apologize.
Sorry, maybe point of order.
Sure.
At what point does the board want to determine whether or not there's a stream? Because if you determine it's not a stream, then it's just one area variance.
Oh, that's helpful.
Looks like a street.
Well, you want me to go first on this one? All right, I think the statement that it's either an ephemeral, or I'm not sure, I can't weigh in whether it's ephemeral or intermittent. Is a stream, it's a stream by most opinions, it's definitely a stream in my opinion. Andy,
It's a stream.
Kim,
I'm going with what Angel said, which is that it's a small headwater stream, but doesn't know if it's ephemeral or perennial,
for
so.
stream, yes,
um,
no,
If it's ephemeral, is it really a stream?
Yes, it's really a stream.
Okay, so then, yes, and then we should do a good variance to include both, so that he doesn't have to deal with this in the
I
future.
would see, so what do you think?
Don't feel like I can decide that, but I do feel like we should do both just to make sure.
Like,
Good comment.
good, thanks. Good.
Okay. Pick back up.
Please.
Does she have to read all the whereases?
Normally, the board just.
They're a little bit different though, like
Okay, let's do it.
2 area variances are related to grading program, and these are different than the usual.
If she doesn't mind reading it, read it.
Yeah, I'd say.
I left off at what.
Do you want some water?
I don't have to start again, do I?
Do you want some water?
Okay.
We'll talk.
So whereas the subject lots are zoned as R for residential, and whereas the request of the 2 area variances are related to a grading permit for a driveway in a stream and wetland and their associated buffers that impact both properties. And said driveway is associated with a building permit to construct a new detached dwelling on 5280 Curry Road, and whereas the first area variance request is relief from the code of the Town of Ulysses, CTU 212-41.a, which requires a 50-foot minimum buffer setback from streams. And whereas the second area variance request is relief from CTU 212-41.b, which requires a 50-foot minimum buffer setback from federally and locally designated wetlands. And whereas all requested variances are a type 2 action under the code, rules, and regulations of the state of New York, Title 6, Part 617 seeker, Section 5.c.16, granting of individual setback and lot line variance and requires no further review. And whereas the action required 239 review and Tompkins County determined in their comment letter dated February 14th, 2025, that the proposal will not have a significant countywide or intercommunity impact. And whereas the BZA did conduct meetings on April 16th, 2025 and May 14th, 2025, and discuss the proposed variance requests. And whereas notice of the public hearing was published in the Ithaca Journal, was posted on the subject site, was posted on the town's public legal notice board, and was posted on the town's webpage, and was mailed to property owners within a 500-foot radius of the subject property. And whereas the BZA did conduct a public hearing on May 14, 2025, where it reviewed a site plan entitled Survey Map number 5280 Curry Road, Town of Ulysses, Tompkins County, New York, prepared by T.G. Miller, dated September 26, 2018, revised October 16, 2019, amended by Chad Doolittle, April 30, 2024, and other applicable materials. And okay, so we are on page 2 of 6, just to let you know. Whereas by considering the criteria listed in the Consolidated Laws of New York, Chapter 62, Article 16, Section 267-B.3.b, the BZA reviewed the record and weighed the benefits of the applicant against the detriment to the health, safety, and welfare of the neighborhood if the variances were granted, and 1, whether an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties will be created by the granting of the area variances. 2, whether the benefit sought by the applicant can be achieved by some other method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than area variances. 3, whether the requested area variances are substantial. 4, whether the proposed variances will have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood or district. And 5, whether the alleged difficulty was self-created. And whereas by considering the criteria listed in CTU 212-124.b.7, the BZA considered the shape and physical characteristics of the property, the locations of all streams and wetlands on and or adjacent to the property, the location and extent of the proposed buffer or setback intrusions, whether alternative designs are possible which require less intrusion, and the water quality impacts of the proposed variance. Now, therefore, be it resolved as follows. Considering all of the statutory factors set forth, the Board of Zoning Appeals finds the following. The benefit to the applicant in the granting of the area variance to waive the 50-foot buffers for both stream and wetland for the driveway, and this is where we make decisions, right? Will or will not outweigh the detriment to the health, safety, and
It's
welfare.
up to you, what you're saying there.
Will.
Yeah, okay. Sorry, so
That's
the
good.
buffers of the stream will not outweigh the detriment to the health, safety, and welfare of the neighborhood. The granting of the area variance,
Will.
Wait, you don't wanna say that.
did I say will not?
You say, well,
Yeah.
I think you just.
First time you said will, let's keep it that. That's good, that's fine. So will, right? We all agree?
Can we just go with what I
Yeah,
said?
will outweigh the detriment.
Yes.
The benefit will outweigh the detriment.
Yes, thank you. Number 2, the granting of the area
Do you
variance.
want to add some language here? What was it, did you see this?
I did, I just didn't know if you guys wanted to say anything.
What do you think? You just want to let that stand that is? It will
That's
outweigh.
adequate.
What?
I think it's adequate.
Absolutely.
Can we say something about, I mean,
Conditions. It will, the benefit, will outweigh the,
I mean, we're waiving a 50-foot buffer. Should we
Yeah.
say something about that? I think that,
I would offer some
Yeah,
kind
go ahead.
of the assignment that they will outweigh the detriment of the health, safety, and welfare of the neighborhood.
Especially given,
With,
the conditions
yeah,
are,
with the conditions approved by the BCA. So,
okay,
see what I'm saying?
So you're trying to reference the conditions of approval later.
So-
Yeah.
so it's not just sitting there saying, oh, it's okay to waive the 50-foot buffer. Yeah, conditions of approval is what we're calling.
So safety and welfare of the neighborhood, so will outweigh the detriment to the health, safety, and welfare of the neighborhood as identified in the conditions of approval, or, I mean, we already listing the
Make it
conditions.
Segue there, what's your?
I think something like especially, because you don't wanna
Yeah, give it-
discount what they're
or give it
saying, this is a
something.
period almost, but you wanna also add on to it. Oh, yeah, I think especially given the
Yeah, right,
additional condition.
is that right, Kim?
Yeah.
Especially given the conditions of approval, that's
Given the, I don't know, especially it seems a little,
hard, extreme, right? Given, it's given.
In light of,
Karen, come on, we got any wordsmithing going?
Sorry, guys, but
it's 8:50.
We've done this many times, and I
I
don't
know.
know why we're not coming up with the words right now.
something like, they will outweigh the detriment of the health, safety and welfare of the neighborhood in light of the conditions of approval, from the BZA.
I think,
I mean, I think it's not necessary because.
it stands on its own, right?
Exactly, I think sometimes it's better to be simpler.
And then we do have the conditions listed later in the document.
Well, I want to make sure that we say that,
How about just leave the period? And then
Yep.
say an additional sentence that says the conditions
See
of
the
approval
conditions of-
will mitigate or will
oh, okay,
further decrease any detriment. Or something like that,
That's
or
a good
will,
one.
or
There you
will
go.
count, or will balance any.
ameliorate, balance or ameliorate,
Ameliorate.
something like that, yeah.
We'll just leave that period there and then say,
The conditions of
Conditions.
approval listed below will.
How about C, conditions of approval below?
That works for me.
I like that.
No,
Because we're
Cheryl
using
doesn't like
again,
that.
what? We
Um,
will use it many times in our review.
I think the conditions of approval will further ameliorate any detriment. Anyone like that?
What's the word, alleviate, would you say?
Ameliorate, I like to
Yeah,
ameliorate,
ameliorate's fine.
or something like that.
Yeah, that's good.
okay, so we're saying the conditions of approval will further ameliorate any concerns. Is that what we said?
Detriment.
And
Any
detriment.
detriments.
Okay,
Thank you.
that's the hardest one, then we do it again. Say it.
I was gonna say we only have 13 of those to get through. The granting, do I need to read that whole thing again, Carissa? Or?
No, I got it.
Thank you very much. The granting of the area, number 2, the granting of the area variance to waive the 50-foot buffer to both the stream and wetland for the driveway.
Will not.
So it's, so you got, will not create an undesirable change in the character of the neighborhood and will not be a detriment to nearby properties. Do you guys want to consider any further language?
My only comment here is like, they're all like every single, driveway, as we've heard, and it's not gonna change the neighborhood.
Right.
Similar conditions,
Or just leave
similar conditions exist on nearby or
all
neighboring
nearby
sites.
properties, any neighborhood. Acres,
Similar conditions exist on nearby
all,
properties.
yeah, many nearby properties. That okay?
Yeah, I'm fine with
Okay.
it. Number 3, the benefit sought by the applicant to waive the 50-foot buffers for both the stream and the wetland for the driveway cannot be achieved by some method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than an area variance. Any other language?
Say no more, man.
The requested area variance is to waive the 50-foot buffers for both the stream and wetland for the the requested area variance is to waive the 50-foot buffers for both the stream and wetland for the driveway
Is,
is substantial, but no additional language. Number 5, the proposed, whoops,
Yeah, is
You
that
want
a good place
additional-
for additional language? It's substantial, but. It's ameliorated by
Yeah, I don't know.
conditions.
What ameliorated by the conditions or something, you want to say that again?
I would just add that same sentence, just
Okay.
leave the period and add that same sentence,
Right.
or leave it alone.
or maybe do we, I don't know, I
I'm-
think we're going down rabbit holes a little bit.
I'm still sharing champ on this one.
Of what, leave it alone.
Yeah, sometimes, you know.
Okay, leave it alone,
this,
right?
you know, This one, it is substantial, okay.
Okay. Number 5, the proposed area variance is to waive the 50-foot buffers for both the stream and wetland for the driveway. So it will not have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood or district.
That's a hard one,
Hmm,
because it's the environmental, but we think it's not gonna have a big impact, because it's just trickling through there and.
And when you think about what is consistent across our town, Are the neighbors being restricted in that way?
No,
So Kim, you could probably just say what you want there.
Yeah, but this is about the environment. We did.
I know, but I don't think it's significant impact
I
to
don't
the
think so.
environment, and I also think it's really a wrong decision to impose something that is difficult to enforce. Like,
Yeah,
or is somebody gonna,
this is just saying will or will not, this is not imposing it, you know, there's no. It is or is.
I'd be
I
interested
think,
to
I
see.
think I'd like to say that it's already existing. And so it won't add any,
right,
something like that, but is
sure,
that right?
Yep, so you would like to say that it will not have an adverse effect or impact on the physical environmental conditions in the neighborhood or district as it already exists?
The.
Or the driveway already
Already exists and it won't add any further, is that something like that? That seem right?
yeah,
Disturbance to the,
That works?
with the conditions.
So. Will not have an adverse impact in the neighborhood or district as
Period.
period.
The driveway, and then a new sentence, the driveway already exists. And then what did you want to say?
And will not I think, and with the conditions, will not increase disturbance.
Well, anyway, it's not gonna increase.
What?
And will not, you don't, I mean, it just won't.
Won't do any further effect or further, what's the words?
So will not create
Impact,
further,
negative impact.
Yeah.
Adverse effect.
will not create adverse effect.
You guys good with that one now? We're good? Okay.
Good, thanks.
I'm afraid to even say this one. All right, number 6, the alleged difficulty to waive the 50-foot buffers for both the stream and the wetland for the driveway.
No, this might be the one. This might be the time. Is this it?
Yeah, for
The
once.
unicorn?
No, it's
Is
not.
this where we say it's not self-created because he bought it like this, right? So that's
That's
what,
the first time
Right,
ever?
yeah.
This is the first time ever.
Usually we think
It's
it
not
is.
self-created?
not self-created,
It's not
congratulations.
That's gotta feel good. That's gotta feel good.
Okay,
Drew, you agree?
Yeah, I agree.
okay, any further language or can we move on to 7? All right, 7 it is. The shape and physical characteristics of the property are such that the granting of the area variances to waive the 50-foot buffers for both the stream and wetland for the driveway is warranted. Any additional language?
Nope.
Okay, number 8. The location of the stream and wetlands on and or adjacent to the property are such that the granting of the area variance to waive the 50-foot buffers for both the stream and wetland for the driveway is warranted. Any additional comments? No? Yes, I thought I heard Steve talking, I just don't want to move.
And when you say is warranted,
Is warranted.
location of the stream and that, that's. So.
What are you?
What?
Is this one of our usual things?
No,
Why do we have that one?
So the 5 that you normally go through.
Yeah.
Are under state. These additional ones are specific to the Ulysses code for variances from wetlands and stream buffers.
okay, I like it. That got us. Help us a little bit.
You guys good with 8 before I move on to 9?
Is warranted, because why, do you better than want to say anymore? I'm good.
Okay. 9, the location extent of the proposed buffer and intrusions are such that the granting of the area variance to waive the 50-foot buffers for both the stream and the wetland for the driveway is warranted. Wait, is that the same thing we just said? Oh, no, one was the stream, one was the wetland. Got it, never mind. I'm moving on.
Oh,
It's,
I think there is a good thing to say here is that there's no other way to access the property. We add that?
yeah, it's the only access. And it already exists, and like, that's like that.
Oh, number 10 is gonna help us. Alternative designs are not possible which require less intrusion.
Yeah, okay,
Is that good? Any other language?
I think say all that stuff we just said, which is, see, it's already existing, it's, only excess,
Yeah, I mean, I think that's sort of what that's implying, right? No other designs are possible
it's implying it, and it's definitely true, yeah.
unless we build a bridge or flies in,
We're going with our not,
or not, right?
right? And can we add to the 8 and the 9, both, the thing about there is no other access to the property?
Yeah, I would like that. And I think we also, I think I had a. Next. Very narrow play, same thing. It's problematic.
Okay, number 11, the
Wait,
impacts to,
sorry,
I apologize.
hold on one second.
Yeah.
So 8, 9, and 10 are all gonna say there's no other access to the
No,
property.
just 8, 9.
Okay,
Thank you.
All right, perfect.
Oh, actually 10, it works for 10
10,
too.
that's 10 too,
Okay, all right,
right. So if you want to see there's no other access other than the narrow strip, like forward, you know. And
Then through the wetland. Other than through the wetland. You can't get the property without.
That's right.
Okay, okay.
And then through the narrow. Cut.
Pass through.
Let's just
the
say there is
back
no other
nine.
way, there is no other way to access the property, period. Is that okay?
Right.
got it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Number 11, the impacts to water quality are such that the granting of the area variances to waive the 50-foot buffers for both the stream and the wetland for the driveway is warranted. Any additional comments?
I think that here we definitely need to put the
Yeah,
conditions.
the conditions, I think.
Parking, despite what we heard from tonight, it's important not to park on the driveway. To me, it feels really important not to park on the driveway in the wetland area because of all the reasons.
Yeah, in the wetland area, not the driveway. The driveway's long and,
Yeah,
wetland
yeah,
area,
not the whole entire driveway.
dripping oil
within-
and fluids and even
Oil,
air conditioning
transmission
fluids.
So that's where this one, water quality, I think, comes in.
Yeah.
They've got parking.
So you want to put conditions.
Yeah, I just feel like it gets redundant if we do it. I'd almost, maybe we should make a statement at the top, like, here's these and.
Well, we could,
then.
it's only one time and it's on there.
But is this, we're not doing the same thing we were doing before about the conditions? Did we already do a statement
We
about?
should say the
conditions?
same statement that we set up in.
Yeah, Chris, or you could, we could just take that same statement if we did that last, I think we did.
Is it the driveway already exists?
No, there's,
The other one, conditions of approval.
I think it was number 1.
Conditions of approval will further ameliorate any detriments.
Okay. Good,
Is that okay?
Yep,
that's perfect.
Okay, what number is that?
number 11.
11. Okay,
We're getting there.
all right, I'm back.
Okay. Number 12, the property's shape, topography, and or physical conditions does not prevent the subject land from does prevent the
Does.
subject land from development unless the variants are granted. Sorry about that.
What a perfect question.
Any other
Property
language?
should does prevent somebody from developing.
Oh, wait, we get to pick on 12 or 13, not both. Hold on. I'm just catching up here. So hold on, that's 12. So 12 is the property's shape, topography, and or physical condition does prevent the subject land from development unless the variance is granted. And then 13 reads, strict adherence to the minimal stream and wetland buffer setback requirements will or will not create
I think
hardship.
12 is
Will.
our, 12 is our jam.
12 is our jam.
And then read all the words.
What does that mean?
Don't write that down.
Jam.
Don't write that down.
The kids say that.
Okay, so we're gonna go with 12 and exclude 13. Is that what I'm hearing? That works for me.
Yeah, that's a good one on me. I like that. Multiple choice here, huh?
Mm.
Okay, so we're getting rid of 13.
Yes, please.
Okay.
Get that. If I do it.
All right. For the reasons set forth above and upon the evidence, law, and facts, the BZA hereby does grant the area variances to waive the 50-foot buffers for both the stream and the wetland for the driveway, and does grant permission for a grading permit in the stream and wetland, including excavation, fill, and construction of culverts for the driveway associated with a building permit to construct a new detached dwelling located at 5280 Curry Road, subject to the following conditions.
And all this is, you want this on here, right? Because it's, you want it connected to the building of the.
We need that for Mark to be able to issue his permit, yes.
Okay. Okay, good. Thank you.
Since we already discussed these, do I read
Yes.
through all of them?
No, just tell Carissa which ones to wipe out.
So I just want to make sure, were we getting rid of one? Because I feel like Niels was recommending that we keep it.
We're keeping it right because of construction. So
I was recommending the board or interpret the code, because the code says may. So if the BZA, so just to be clear, if the BZA does not put number one as a condition, town legal will be drafting boilerplate language from Mark to put onto his building permit that tries to safeguard the town as much as possible from any future litigation that may arise.
Also,
Right, okay.
by requiring number one, I think, I haven't read number one, but what I'm picking up, requiring number one would force me to have professional delineation with a report and
No.
extend this.
No, the number one would just require you to provide proof to Mark that you had a JD from the Corps and or the state.
Which is time.
Yeah. It's time.
And expense.
So this is the conversation we were in before, that we were worried about it becoming boilerplate, and then you said, no, that's not what I'm saying, but you just said it again.
Okay.
Did we?
Yeah, we're worried about setting precedent. You get.
So. Okay,
If you get it, tell me.
I get it.
If the-
Let's say he's using it as a legal term, boilerplate means that they're putting this on this permit so that. And they could use it again
Yeah.
if this exact situation ever presented
And
itself
what we're
again.
saying is, we don't really want them to use it again.
Only if this situation ever presented itself again, which I don't think, I mean, how could it?
No, we are doing it for this.
so the boilerplate language is for the construction permit.
Yeah.
BZA is not issuing the construction permits. That's
Right.
Mark's purview.
All right, what does boilerplate mean?
Boilerplate means I'm regurgitating this language. So the information for
With
the
this
developer,
permit.
if you look at the information for developer underneath, that's basically boilerplate language that goes on permits. It's just copy paste, that's boilerplate.
Right, so that's what I thought.
So again, the BZA does not issue construction permits. Mark does that. The building official does that. The code says. Does that, I maybe backtrack, does that make sense?
It makes, we just don't understand why it's becoming a boilerplate. We only are doing it for this person.
So the code says that for intrusions into wetlands and their buffers, a jurisdictional determination from the Army Corps and the state may be required. That means the BZA has the authority to determine whether or not to require that. That part,
Each time,
each time.
each time.
So-
It's each time.
So for this
If it still
particular
says
one,
May and continues to say May, then I'm okay with this.
right,
And
So-
get rid of this.
each and every time anyone wants to build or construct anything within a buffer or a wetland, it's going to have to come back to the BZA for variance. So you're going to be coming up to this because of this May, and you're gonna, so
Right.
for this particular one,
They vote to get rid of it still.
for this particular one, if the BZA does not
I know.
want to make a requirement for the applicant to provide the town's building official with a jurisdictional determination from the Army Corps or DEC. My understanding is Army Corps is much more outfitted to be able to respond quicker. DEC is at least 6 months out. They're just too backlogged.
Army Corps is getting gutted, so probably not either.
That's another issue.
Well,
so if that doesn't
permanent
happen-
issue for this right now.
Right. So if the BZA does not require it as a condition, town legal will be issuing or will be drafting language for the building official to put boilerplate language saying it appears that there are federal wetlands on your property. Building permit is being issued without being in receipt of a jurisdictional determination from the Army Corps. And some other language that says any future fallout from that negative
Mhm.
is not the responsibility of the town. That's the boilerplate language I'm talking about. That's going to safeguard Mark and the town from future litigation if
I
there
get-
arises.
I get that, but I don't like that, we're talking about the building here, and I'm still thinking.
Construction permit, how about that? Construction permit? Does that
So
help?
we're talking about construction, and I really don't like the thought of not knowing where the wetland is. I'm still back on that. For construction, I mean. Road, we're there, where we are in the road. Driveway, but. Construction,
I believe him that he said it's 160 feet from the line.
I measure, but I'm not sure where the wetland is, so I.
So we're not talking about the house, we're talking about as part of the construction permit for the house is also approval for the driveway.
So is one or the other better for the town? Us putting a condition that number one in there, or
I'm,
our town attorney doing adding the language, is one preferable or beneficial?
until the town revamps its wetland regulations, I'm gonna leave that up to the board to determine whether or not it's gonna require it. Either one safeguards the town.
Okay, but one was a may and one was shall, right? So
There is no shall.
this one says that all necessary state and federal authorizations pertaining impacts to the wetland and stream shall be obtained and submitted to the town prior to issuance. Did you say the other one was a may option, may be required?
So the code says may.
Oh, the code says may.
If the BZA makes it a requirement, that's where it becomes shall.
Right. This will be a shell, because we can require.
Right, that's what I was trying to avoid the shall.
So this is where the BZA is making an interpretation of the code.
I think it's not warranted in this case. I don't know what this is saying.
I think it's unwarranted in this case, so.
Every other time.
That's our.
I'm never gonna say this like rarely say this in any other case.
Okay. So it
Agreed.
sounds like we're agreeing to take number one out of the conditions, and that's what number one was, Chad.
Agreed.
I know I talk fast, but,
No, you've been, that's off to you.
so
great.
number two, we sort of conditionally agreed to keep in here, so I just want to read it. No
Front
other,
home, That's the front home. That's the only question on that, at the very end.
okay, hold on, sorry, I was just gonna read it. So no other
Okay.
grading, including excavation and or fill of the stream, wetland, and their associated buffer shall be permitted without prior approval.
By the town of Ulysses.
Okay.
Got it.
Okay. Number three, we agreed to land clearing, grading, filling, and alteration of natural drainage features and landform shall be limited to the minimum necessary. Is it necessary to read the ones that we discarded?
No.
Thank you. So we're gonna discard number four. We're gonna keep number five. Come four now, parking and storage of vehicles shall be prohibited on the driveway located in the wetland and its buffer.
Actually,
Is that three?
Mhm.
Sorry.
What?
I was off on my numbers. I was messing you guys. I'm sorry. Six, we agreed to discard. Agreed. Okay, seven, or whatever, I'm sorry, big four,
yeah, I think we got rid of 6 and 7.
Yes.
Shall be submitted in town on stormwater engineer.
we did, I apologize.
No, so 1 and 7.
And then eight, we agreed to keep all exposed ground must be reseeded within 30 days of the completion of construction. If reseeding is not practical due to weather or seasonal restraints, the ground must be covered with mulch. Or, does they have to say mulch? Does it practical with mulch or? Whatever that is, straw, hay, something.
It's gonna be plastic mulch or straw.
So mulch is just standard language.
Netting, the fine netting section. Mulch is not.
They're just trying to
I
limit,
didn't like cover with a sheet or-
they're just trying to limit erosion. Is that what this is? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Could we say the ground must be covered with mulch? Or as directed by the town's building official, because what if they put something out there, just, I don't know, I mean, it seems like we're saying mulch, it's like. you have
Well, all
to
the
be-
literature that, I'm sorry.
No, that's
all the
okay.
literature, They use mulch as everything. It's plastic mulch, it's plastic. All sorts of things.
Are you saying you want to put the word for in?
Or one.
I-
Comes after that.
I was just saying with mulch or as directed,
Yeah,
so
let's
like,
insert or between much and as, I think.
yeah, so it's or as directed, so somebody says, I didn't realize mulch was a generic term, I was thinking like. You know what, it's
Yeah.
too late, if it's mulch, it's mulch,
No, I like that, or is directed,
okay. Great,
Okay, so just to confirm,
adding the word or.
we have 2, 3, 5, and 8 as the conditions.
yes.
Okay, which are gonna get renumbered.
So 2, 3, 5, and 8 become 1, 2, 3, 4.
Thank you, Kim.
Did you want to read that all back? We don't have to do the information or any of the other information, from there, we're good, right? Okay,
That's right.
Great. any
Okay,
other,
thank you. Any other words, discussion before we call the vote?
a second, the motion.
Okay, good.
Um,
Thanks. I think we
do you wanna
did.
say
I
something?
Did we already do
did that
that?
earlier, but
I didn't hear a
I
Yeah.
said it by
second.
mistake.
She asked Chad if he has any comment. Is that not? Not of
Um,
interest.
The
Let's go
only
on.
thing I ever say at this point, that's why, this is one of the reasons I like to talk about beforehand, because if they say it's not agreeable, I can't do any of that stuff. I like to hash that out before we start getting into all this, so.
Yeah, it's
answer
just
your
part that
question
we were,
later.
we were talking about it abstractly, we were talking about it, we were reading it, but we weren't telling
Right.
you what we were reading, so it's very abstract, it's not really fair, but now you've heard what we were talking about.
So it's,
And I'm
No
getting from
further
your body language
explanation?
and you're nodding and all that, that this seems,
Go
it
ahead.
does,
I'm
Just
just, you're not.
no further excavation in the wetland. No
Correct.
no parking cars in the wetland.
On the wetland strip there.
Mulch it or seed it.
If you can't,
Yeah, you can.
yeah,
What's the point? What's
within
the
30 days
point?
of completion, I think that was actually, no grading,
First story similar.
yeah. It just has that you keep the land clearing rate.
Oh, the
within
minimum.
operation
Yeah,
at a
minimum.
minimum
Yeah.
Is the term.
I concur.
So you do it now or later, but I like to do it before, so I think I'll continue. So it was good that we're done. Thank you very much. Call the vote? All in favor?
Hi.
Aye.
I,
Aye, motion carries, it's unanimous. Good, thanks.
Thank you.
congratulations.
Big
That was
hero-
right there.
I think the big hero is Carissa Parlato. Sitting in on this. Thanks very much.
Oh, yeah.
Well, thanks for
Thank
your
you, guys.
comments and, good luck with that.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Get things going soon.
Thank
Okay,
you for your patience.
Yeah, thank
Of course. Thank you, guys.
Real quick though, before Chad leaves, the discussion of the house.
yeah,
So interpretation. Does the BZA, I mean, without further information from the BZA, like the building official needs direction, whether or not he's good to go
yeah,
on issuing that permit without a delineation. So if we can have at least a motion from the board
that what?
that says that a delineation is not required and it appears that it's outside,
Wetland, the
Yep.
wetland delineation? Oh, I was talking about the boundary line. I wanted to talk about that.
because that, I mean, having Chad here is gonna help in case you guys say that, no, Mark does need to have that as part of his record.
Thought that striking one. What cleared that up, that you didn't require a delineation.
This was just for the driveway.
I thought it was
You
holistic.
wish.
I thought it was
You
holistic.
wish your whole
I
free.
That he doesn't have to do the expensive part of the delineation. I think that's overburden on the owner.
So with the lot line adjustment map that he submitted, is that good for the board?
What I see here is it says, it's a good line, I like it, but it's proposed parcel to be conveyed, to be conveyed.
Well, it's,
And so that little thing you're making that.
Yeah.
Conform.
yeah.
Wait, are we talking about the property or the wetland?
Well,
So- The lot line
We're talking
adjust,
about the delineation.
the lot line adjustment, the surveyor put a line that has the federal wetland boundaries. So if that's good enough with you, we can give that to the,
Oh, you mean on,
Okay, so we're still talking about wetland.
we are.
And if we say that that's sufficient, then as early as tomorrow, he come and apply for his building permit?
He's already submitted for it. That just tees Mark up to be able to issue it.
Okay,
Sorry, can you show me my brain is? Yeah, what are you saying?
So they delineated, so this line here,
oh, that's wetland?
that's where they use that, so if you guys say it's good to go, not, you can just say this is outside.
he's saying this is big.
I'm fine with that.
Yeah. Yeah, from here to here. This is the
Help
wetland
if we have a
area.
motion for the record.
This is this year.
Right.
Then,
Well, on this, when he laid it out, it was 159 feet, from the flag, it's 163 feet.
okay, I got 150 cents from this place.
From here to here, Chad, that's what we're talking about.
Exactly, you're basically saying that
From here to here.
no further delineation is needed to determine
These are setbacks and kind of these areas.
Well, that's what I'm gonna, that's what I was gonna.
100 feet, over 100.
This is definitely, well, that That would be me to read that.
So
If you change the boundary line. Yeah.
Oh, you're talking about the lot line adjustment. Maybe
Let's do
finish
this
that.
first. Cheryl's telling me.
Want to talk about the lot line?
No, well, it's on here.
All right, we're talking about the wetland only, and we're
Wetland,
making a
yes.
motion, I'll make a motion that
We
we
need to, we just
accept,
need to answer him.
he said make a motion.
Yeah.
If we have a motion on the record, that helps.
That shows that the wetlands are
I will second.
over 100 feet from the house.
So what am I writing?
Yeah, what's the
That
motion?
The motion is that we accept this map, whatever this is called.
says The BZA accepts
Survey,
I can get you the title for that later.
the
a
survey.
lot line.
Lot line
Okay.
adjustment,
Oh, not the lot line.
line
that's the name
adjustment
of it.
map,
Oh.
That's the name of it.
Yeah, the map's
Okay.
about that, yeah.
even though we're not talking about the line. That,
Or a map titled lot line adjustment. That's,
as evidence that the wetland is over 100 feet from the house.
and a delineation is not
That
required.
delineation is not required.
No.
We needed that lot line adjustment if the 320. There seems like there's different versions of it, reference before.
Okay, that's a good one.
the second, Cheryl's motion.
Okay, call the vote.
Aye.
Fine.
Aye.
He didn't ask for a vote, he asked for a vote.
Oh,
Aye.
Well, I think the motion.
Yeah,
requires-
you know, we need to close.
Motion and unanimous vote. Lot
Is that
line.
right?
That's carries, motion carries is unanimous. That was a good one.
Did you-
Okay,
did
can
you
we
need
talk
a-
about the lot line? That's a second.
No.
This little thing, this triangle thing that's
Yeah.
drawn here.
So this triangle,
Yep. There it is, right there.
it's 30 feet.
Yeah.
From the house to this point.
So that would be the, no problem, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, but that's in the future, it's not now.
Well, it's not legally complete. There's steps to take to procure that.
So it's in the future, not now.
I will not need a variance.
Yeah, so we don't need.
If
to
you do
care.
that, you won't need a variance. Do we need to say anything about that?
No,
So, well,
Currently, it's not in
If you
violation.
don't do that, you're coming back.
Currently, it's not in violation. If I don't put a deck on this house, I have 15 feet right here.
so mark that out then on, please have someone mark that out on on your site plan, because that kind of indicates that without having it scaled out or notified, it looks like it's really, really close to
It
that
is
property line.
Agreed.
15 feet's too close for mine,
gotta
which
be-
is why it's gonna be 30.
So for the map, submit an amended map to Mark that shows that it's
Sure.
15 feet, and then we're good.
Great.
And so, be careful, things you put on. Build it onto the side of it. In the future.
Oh, of course, yeah. Well.
Unless you get your 30
Yeah.
feet, then you.
Tompkins County, they didn't push it up the hill, but yes. I'll be here.
Thanks for being patient.
Thank you, guys. Have a good night.
Good night, guys.
Good luck with that. Okay. Anybody have anything to add? You want to finalize this, say anything, or do you want to move to adjourn?
Can we bypass the town board liaison report? Just,
Is Mary still awake?
I don't know, I was wondering,
what's bypass?
She's not really
can
good.
we bypass it? or-
She's not really good liaison.
Okay,
Hey, Mary,
I'm still here, barely.
any, you want to carry us from the board?
I don't really have anything to report from the board.
Okay. Well, great. Thanks for sticking with us tonight. Appreciate it.
Sure.
Good night.
Have a great night.
No,
Here,
Good night.
Anybody?
Motion to adjourn.
I second that.
Any discussion on that? Aye. Vote
I,
aye,
sorry.
unanimous, thanks.